Welcome to the Passive Income Machine podcast, where we show you how to break free from the grind and achieve real financial freedom in 10 years or less. My name is Ryan D. Lee, and I've helped thousands turn income into cash flow, trade fake money for real assets, and take back control over their time, their wealth, and ultimately their life. Each week, you'll get strategy, tools, and mindset to build your own passive income machine. So my friends, sit back, relax, and enjoy today's episode. All right, my friends. Welcome to the Passive Income Machine podcast. You are on the microphone today with me, Ryan D. Lee, and really for the first time ever, I'm bringing on a guest speaker on this podcast, and this guest speaker happens to be one of my favorite people of all time. So not only are you on the microphone today with me, Ryan D. Lee, you're on the microphone with my man, the myth, and the legend, Luke Nesler. Luke, you want to say what's up to everybody?
What's up, everybody? What's up, Ryan? I appreciate you having me on today.
You know what, I tell you what, this individual, this is going to be such a fun conversation because, Luke, you have been on a path of transformation, I would say quite literally, for the past several years. I mean, obviously, at least since I've known you, but your transformation has been staggering. We put out the message, the philosophy, the idea that anyone can become financially free in 10 years or less, that no matter who you are or where you start from, it's possible for you. And I think, Luke, you heard that message and you started running through walls to accomplish that. And so as we get going in this today, guys, I'm going to give you an opportunity to really hear from someone else's perspective how principles aligned with money can create actual transformation. So, Luke, as we get this thing going, take us back a little bit. What was life like for you financially, mentally, emotionally, just life in general before you found, what is the passive income machine and money mastery?
Yeah, man, it's a good question. I mean, life for me, I think from the outside looking in, everybody else might have thought that life was pretty good because financially, I had built a business from nothing and was making multiple six figures a year. Things were good. Like I kind of did what I wanted, where I wanted, went wherever I wanted, and that's what I always thought that it was about, right? And I'd achieved that, and I was just left confused for several years because I was miserable. So from the outside looking in, life was good. Where I was miserable was the fact that at that time, so this would have been right around 2020, my business was at an all-time, we were making the most money, but I was at an all-time low as far as, I was having panic attacks, all kinds of things. I was in the worst shape I'd been in ever. My wife and I were going through struggles with infertility that ended up being a 3-year journey, very expensive, very hard on both of us, but more so my wife. And I was miserable. I was never present. My mom and dad are very, very important to me, and I was always very short with them. I was never present around my wife and her family or my mom and dad, and it all was rooted back to this monster that I had built that was this business that made me a lot of money, but left me with nothing left to give to my family, which is why I was doing it. So when I found you, I was looking for a solution to that.
I think it's fascinating, Luke, that you bring that up. I think a lot of people, they believe that their happiness, their desire, everything they want is at the tail end of money. But the more I talk to people about money, the more I realize that's really not true. Money, it's a tool. It'll take you wherever you wish, sure it will, but it will never replace you as the driver. And just having a lot of money isn't the solution. It's understanding what that money represents to you and making sure that the money is aligned with your values, what you really want. That's really the core. Like for you, it sounds like even though you had the money, things weren't aligned. When did you realize that, and why did you look outside of your business rather than inside of your business to solve that alignment?
I realized that when we were going through our infertility and we started with IUI, which is a less invasive procedure, and then that didn't work. We had 6 failed attempts at that. And then we went to IVF, which is what everybody kind of knows when they think of fertility treatments. And we thought, because it is very expensive, it would work. So we went into the first one and it didn't work. And I have a video, I've actually only watched it once since it happened, and it was us taking the failed pregnancy test, and we recorded it because we thought it was going to be this celebration. And it's very hard for me to watch. That is when I realized it, because I started to realize I'm distracted in these doctor's appointments. I need to be mentally and emotionally there for my wife. I need to be listening to what the doctor's saying. And I'm dealing with thinking about how I'm going to put this fire out when I get back to the office, because the business that I had built, while it was lucrative, even though I had a business partner and we owned 50-50, 95% of that business's success was squarely on my shoulder. So that's really when I woke up to it. The reason I started to look outside of my business was because that business had burnt me out. I mean, I don't, I'm not trying to fool anybody. I am very money motivated, but my understanding of what I want from the money that I make has changed. Before, I just wanted to make as much as I could, and then I'll figure out how to live this great life afterwards. And that has completely shifted and changed to where I still want to have an abundance of money, because I want to be able to do great things for people that need help. And I can't do that if I'm broke. So I'm still very money motivated, but at the same time, I've used it as this thing to scrub every decision that I make, to where, am I going to be able to level up financially, but is it also going to make me level down mentally, emotionally, and being present for my family? So I started to look outside of my business, because I just didn't have anything left to give that partnership or that business. And I needed to make a change. For years, I had wanted to do real estate, but I didn't know where to start. And you guys were the seed that I needed to be planted for what I've grown to actually have the chance to grow.
Man, I love what you brought up there, Luke. I think it's so powerful. The more I've come to learn the interaction and the interplay of money and life, money and time, money and our decisions, the more I've realized that everything in life is a trade-off. And that's not bad, but being aware of that, we have to really understand what our most valuable priorities are, and be able to make the trade-offs consciously. And that's why I'm so passionate about this idea of financial freedom in a constrained period of time, 10 years or less, because in my mind, yeah, you're going to make some trade-offs and you're going to choose to do a harder path now. But if you can achieve that objective sooner rather than later, because you're going to make trade-offs one way or the other. You could take the easy path today and you'll make trade-offs in the future, or you can take a little bit harder path today. And I wouldn't even say it's harder. It just requires more intention and more effort. And the trade-off is you'll get more of what you want for longer, more time, more options, more control. And I think you at a young age, man, you found those core values inside of you, and you were able to align your actions, your money, your investing, and now your business, your new business, which we'll talk about next, with those priorities. I think I just want to pat you on the back and say kudos to that, man, because aligning money with values, in my opinion, is the fastest route to happiness. You don't need to be financially free, but you do need to allocate your money, which is a trade-off and a representation of your time, to the priorities that are most meaningful and valuable to you. Do you have any thoughts on that, Luke?
I 100% agree with you, and I think it's far too often that people think they have to be on one side or the other. I don't need money. I'm not money motivated. My family and helping people are what matter to me. And then I think there's a lot of people that are very money motivated. They want to post the photos of their expensive bags and the cars that they're renting that they don't own. Like, there's that. But I think it's finding that middle ground of, when your cup runneth over or whatever it is, that, like, do good things with it. Like, I haven't told this story before, but there's a gentleman that works for me that got into a pinch, and long story short, he needed $4,000 to be able to move into this new home, and it was something that caught him off guard. He didn't get his security deposit back from his previous landlord, so he was going to have to go home and tell his wife and his little girl that they couldn't move into this perfect house that they had found to rent, that had a backyard for their little girl to play. He was going to have to go do that, and it was going to put him in a really bad position. And he was calling, not asking for anything, but just he didn't know what to do, and didn't have anybody to share that with. I gave him a check for $4,000. I couldn't do that if I'm not motivated by money, from the standpoint of, and all things considered, like, that's not a lot of money, but it was a lot of money to him. But I wouldn't have been able to do that if I wasn't focused on making as much money as I can, so that I can protect my family. And when my family's protected, when I'm able to provide for other people. That's kind of why I do what I do, and that's my main priority.
I love that. So Luke, let's go back in time to us getting connected, because I'll never forget our first conversation, man. You came in, you like just so hungry. So walk us through. Yeah, you were feeling some pain, you were feeling some misalignment, and you started looking for something else. What was it originally about the message, whatever it was that you heard, that caught your attention and caused you to take action on that message?
Yeah, it was actually seeing a former member of the community that I've known for a very long time. His name's Jason. He started buying properties like crazy.
He
And he's
did, man.
wired,
That's Jason Rash, right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, dude,
He's
that guy going crazy.
crazy. He's wired very similar to me in a lot of ways and very different than I am in a lot of ways. But when we go all in, we go all in. I'm very similar. So I saw him starting to buy all these properties. And Jason before that was a guy that him and his wife built a very successful network marketing business. And I was like, Jason, what do you, and I was intrigued by real estate, and I knew Jason knew nothing about it a year ago, and now all of a sudden he owned like 13 properties in the first year. I was like, Jason, what are you doing? And he responded to my text message by introducing me and you. And I thought that I just wanted to start buying real estate, and you were a means to that end. And when I got into the community, I realized that it's more setting up the foundation for building a legacy. Something that I still don't do the greatest at. There's so many areas I need to improve on from the vault and all these other things. But it was helping me realize that it's not just a matter of being a gunslinger and buying a bunch of properties with no plan, but it's a matter of figuring out where you want to be and then how you can use a tool such as real estate to build an unbreakable foundation to get you there. And that's really when it all kind of clicked for me.
I love that, Luke. Let's talk a little bit about the community because, man, when I first got into the game of real estate, I thought I could be the lone wolf. In fact, that's my natural personality. For those of you that don't know, is I'm a major introvert. I mean, when I need to recharge my battery, I need no one around me. I need it to be absolutely quiet, and preferably I'm in the mountains by myself. That's how I recharge, right? And so I thought, man, I remember I'd go to a few of these early seminars and all these people were talking. I'm like, I'm not going to do that. I don't need to talk to anyone. I'm going to sit in the back. I'm going to get the information I need and then I'm going to go do whatever I need to do. But very early on, I realized going it alone in real estate in just about every area of life, that's a limited game. And the more I started interacting with people, the more confidence I had, the more my vision was expanded, and the faster I went, more successfully. So when you came in through Jason and started interacting with the community, because I know you've been a major contributor in the community, how did that add value to not just you personally, but to the new path that you were on getting going in real estate? Hey, just sliding in here really quick. I hope you're loving the show and taking some serious notes because everything you're learning right now leads directly to the How to Retire in 10 Years Summit. It's the event of the year. If you're ready to stop dreaming and start living financially free, we have early registration open right now with an exclusive bonus that is too good to pass up. So click the link in the description or just head over to retireintenyears.com and grab your spot, and let's make this year the year that everything changes. Now, back to the show.
Yeah, when I dove in, I thought that I was much like other communities. I was investing in the mentors. So you and the other partners. I thought I was there to just gain information from you guys, and what I learned really quickly was that was a portion of it. But where I really got value was so many of the members of the group, and I think what you've created is really unique because I've been part of other masterminds and groups that cost, and so have you. They cost tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars to be part of, and it's not always like what I've seen with what you have in the community that we have, to where those that have been in there and have maybe gotten 1, 2, or 10 steps ahead of everybody else, they want to pull everybody up and help them. And they're willing to do that. That was when meeting Scott Saunders and Leah and all the Jim Bevins back in the day, like all those people, being able to ask questions that some of them, do I have more real estate than them now? Yes. But they literally are what got me to the point of being able to get to that. And then you have people that are still just the 800-pound gorillas in the room, like Scott Saunders, that you would never know it. He tries to learn from everybody, and he tries to help everybody along. But when you realize what this guy's built, you realize, man, I've got somebody here that is one of the most valuable assets of this community, and he's just he's another member. And now he's obviously much more than that. But that is really what changed for me. And then as I grew and got better and more experience, like that's my favorite part of being part of this group or any group, is trying to help somebody that I know they're where I was 6 months ago or 3 years ago or whatever it was.
Okay, man. Well, let's get into then the weeds of that because, dude, your personality, you did go all in, and I think that is your personality. When you find the thing that you're focused on, you're all in, you're focused, you're a driver. And real estate is a core mechanism to multiply the money that we have. It's a core mechanism to use leverage. It's how people become financially free outside of owning their own business in today's economy. So you went all in on real estate and you've taken it from kind of the passive side to the active side, now to the raising capital side and everything in between. But I'm not going to pretend, we can't pretend that real estate's a straight line. So when you're all in real estate, there are things that come up. How have you dealt with the uncertainty, the ambiguity, the failures, the successes? How have you dealt with the roller coaster that real estate is and oftentimes will continue to be?
Man, it's such a great question. I promised myself when I decided to pretty much give up on my previous business, and that's what I did. I didn't have some big exit. We're still finalizing the details, but I mean, I built something to a multi-million-dollar a year business and I gave up on it. When I gave up on it and I decided I'm turning all of my attention into this, I promised myself that there's going to be stuff that happens that the version of you now would get very upset and distraught and it would ruin your day and your week. Use every experience as a learning lesson. I have stuff tattooed on my body that remind me of that daily. So that is what it is. And I just remind myself that there are people that have been in this game for ages that have seen the highest of the highs and the lowest of the lows. But as long as they stay on the wave, they ride it out every time, as long as they don't get too reckless. So I would say, I honestly would say I'm probably the most aggressive person in the community as far as I have little to zero fear. Now, I don't consider myself reckless, but I think if a lot of people saw what I was doing, they would be very intimidated to do what I do. I play at times a very highly leveraged game to go fast, but it's all within skill sets that I have that I feel comfortable that I can keep the train on the tracks. But when it does swing, it swings. Like, we this past winter, we went through an election. I live in a very cold part of the country. So when it gets cold, people don't buy houses. The interest rates were climbing. So we had properties that I needed to sell that we were sitting on, and it hurt. But it was a learning experience. So I try to learn from the downs and the dips and change how I implement when it comes back up and times are good.
I love that, man. I don't know who said it. There's a statement that goes around out there that says you either win or you learn. And either way, it's a win, right? I mean, because you do have to pay your tuition. Financial freedom isn't free. And I think that's the illusion I had it in the beginning. I thought I do a couple things and I'm free for life. But our choices have consequences, good or bad. And, stewardship is really the gateway to freedom. How do we steward our resources, our attention, our time, the assets that we have? Now, you did mention tattoos on your body, so I got to bring it up. I was with you when you not got the tattoo, but got the idea for the tattoo. It was at one of our events a couple of years ago, and on your forearm, you have a tattoo that just says a very simple word. What is the word, and why do you have that tattoo? What does it represent for you?
I get asked about it all the time. I don't. This is just an audio podcast, but it's on my left hand. It says "good," and it's GOOD period, and I'd heard of Jocko Willink, and I think a lot of people have heard of him. He's a former Navy SEAL. He's an author. He's a podcaster. He's a personality now, and he's an incredible person. And I knew who he was, and I've listened to some of his content, but I wasn't like a Jocko fan. And you guys played this at an event, and I got goosebumps, and I was like, that is. And I remember I flew home the next day, and I remember that evening and the next day, like I watched that video multiple times because I was in the thick of it at that point, like. I need to leave this business. I don't know how I can get out of it. Like I struggled for 2 years with a lot of things, and that video, it's very short. Just anybody go on YouTube and just type in "good," and you'll find the Jocko Willink video, and it just talks about bad things are going to happen to you, and to embrace that and understand that as long as you are able to get up and you're able to wake up, you still have breath in your lungs, you're alive, you have another opportunity to get better. And learn from that. So if something goes good in your life, good. If something goes terribly wrong, good. You're not dead. Learn and move on. And there are certain things I have tattooed on where I can see them that I use as reminders,
Yeah.
and I try to every day. So yeah, that was definitely a powerful moment at your guys' event that I carry with me all the time now.
I love that video and your reaction to it because it's Jocko Willink, he's this hardened, battle hardened soldier, and he's just, everything is, and he has that deep voice, good, good, and everything you think is like you want to whine about, cry about, curl up and fade into the corner, good. Like life is giving you exactly what you need to become the person capable of dealing with the blessings, handling and stewarding the blessings that are on the other side of the challenge that you're facing. And Luke, I think you embody that, right? You run into the abyss, you face the challenge, and even though it's hard, it's part of the process. It's good. And so, as we talk a little bit about that, you've learned a lot of lessons in the game of real estate, I'm sure. In order to be successful in real estate, just give us kind of a couple bullet points. Give us some of the top lessons you've learned from starting with single family homes, scaling to the way you've scaled up to this point. What are some of the lessons to be successful long term in the game of real estate?
Yeah, I think the first and foremost, the beautiful thing about what your community taught me was just stay focused on one thing until you get good at it or master it. Because the problem with real estate is there's 1,000 different ways to do it. So what happens is a lot of people never get started. There's media companies out there that put some really great content out, but the problem is every week it's a different strategy. And for somebody that's new that knows they want to change their life, they're never going to be any further along in 5 years as they are today if they don't pick one strategy and move forward. So what I did was I learned how to buy turnkey single family homes. I bought two of them, and that's what you guys teach, one of the strategies. And I realized it's not for me. I want to go faster, so I want to buy a different type of real estate and I want to manage it myself. But what that it did for me was it allowed me to stay focused to get two deals in, and then realize, okay, I want to adjust my strategy a little bit while still maintaining everything else that they teach. So here's what I'm going to do, and that's exactly what I did. So pick a strategy, implement it, and determine, hey, does this get me to the ideal lifestyle that I'm trying to build? I do a lot of multifamily and we do a lot of fix and flip, two very different types of real estate. But I say no to a ton of things, properties that are not my market. People want me to do new construction all the time. People want me to buy commercial buildings. It's not what I do. So stay laser focused. The other thing is, I know a lot, there's, especially in communities like this, there's a lot of high income W-2 individuals, and that's awesome. And you can definitely use your money to invest, but there's also a lot of people that don't think that they can get in real estate until they're rich. And I don't think I've coined the phrase, but I say a lot to people that I've just kind of tried to help get into a deal, or that have jumped on a call with me or whatever, and just given them my 2 cents. I'm like, listen, you don't have to be rich to get into real estate. If you know how to do it, you can use real estate to make you rich. Seller finance. My very first deal that changed my life was a 6-unit multifamily building. I used some home equity line of credit. And what I did was I ultimately bought a property that I got on a 0% seller finance deal that cash flows $8,000 a month. And I've got it on a 15-year note. You don't have to be rich to get in real estate.
Yeah.
Like there's ways to do it. And then once you get in, if you decide, if you're like, you want to be active in it, then, learning how to find off market deals, learning how to raise private money. There's all these things that can help you elevate your game. But the big thing is none of that matters until one, you figure out, what are you trying to achieve? What do you want your life to look like? And then pick that one thing, turnkey, single family. I would highly recommend probably being that one thing, and focus on that until you get 1, 2, 10, and then decide how do you need to update your strategy.
I love that, Luke. I love that. You mentioned it earlier in this podcast, and I want to bring that point that you mentioned right back to what you just said. You committed, right? So you were all in, and I think that's really the point. Once, if you're interested, if you're dabbling, if you're curious, if you're using, this idea of learning something as a checkbox for progression in your life, you're gonna get stuck, and your life is gonna be a reflection of your past. But once you commit, once you go all in, even if you don't have the resources, you find out, and this is what I love about real estate probably more than anything, everyone's resources are going to run out at some point. If you try to use only your own resources, you'll never ever become wealthy. And in real estate, it's the ultimate game of leverage. And I think a lot of people have a misperception of what leverage is. Sure, we can leverage the bank's money, but that's only one of many forms of leverage, whether it's borrowing, whether it's strategy, whether it's hustling, whether it's using media, whether it's leveraging to make more money so you can invest. There's so many forms of leverage. And the game of real estate is ripe with leverage, which means the only constraints is your personal inability to not see the options in front of you. And usually those come when you're not all in, when you're not fully committed. Would you agree, or do you have anything to elaborate on that?
Yeah, man, I completely agree with it. It's when you're not fully committed, it's easy to be that person that says, well, it didn't work for me. You have to be fully committed. And there's, based off of my story and kind of what I've gone through, I mean, there's a talk that I've developed and I've given a couple times, and it's based off of the concept of you're one decision away. You have to make that decision to go all in. And if you pick any of the thousands of hundreds of strategies of how to buy real estate, and if you make that one decision to commit to becoming a master of that strategy, it's going to work for you. If it's self-storage, if it's multifamily, if it's single family turnkey, if it's wholesaling, it's going to work. You just have to make that decision to commit to yourself and go all in, to change your life. And that's, I am the thing that I'm probably most proud of that I've done is I was a C-level student. I barely got out of college. It took me 2 years longer than it should have, but I make more money than a lot of the people that were extremely smart. So I'm not intelligent. I'm just very committed. So as a case study of somebody that's done this, like anybody can do this. I'm not intelligent. I'm just committed, and I made a bet, and I went all in on myself, and I made that decision, and this is what it's gotten me.
That right there, I think we could end the podcast just on that. That is the success framework. Once you commit, all of the anxiety, all of the fear, all of the unknowns, they all fade to the background. They're still there, but they don't hold you up anymore. In fact, they drive you forward. It does come down to committing. And so, Luke, I love that. Talk us through on the other side of this bridge. Now, you're over your lifetime and over your career, you're going to cross many bridges. You're going to see new horizons and continue to knock down barriers in front of you. But when I first met you, you had some frustration, some anxiety, some health, all the things that you were dealing with, infertility. It's been such a fun blessing for me in my life to watch you and so many of the people that I've had an opportunity to interact with in our community, to watch their lives transform. And I love seeing that. I love seeing how your marriage has improved, your role as a father now, man, half your pictures on the internet, they're you and your little son just, living life together. So walk us through the other side, right? You went from walking away from a business to now starting a business in the game of real estate, and truly, I'm going to just say financial freedom. You're choosing what you want to do with your life today, even though you're still working. So walk us through what it's like being on the other side of this bridge.
Yeah, I officially left my business this summer, and the day that I did, I gave myself some grace, and I'm like, you're just not going to do anything today. You're just going to because it was a very emotionally charged decision, and it wasn't easy. So I just I didn't do anything that day, and I reflected on it, and I didn't leave until I technically was financially free to where I could not do anything and still continue to live the way that we are. We'd have to save a little bit, but technically wouldn't have to. And that was my goal, was to not make a move until I didn't have to. Now I'm put on this earth to work and to create. So I'm not somebody that just because I technically am financially free means that I want to not do anything. Like, I'm nowhere near where I want to be. And as inflation changes, 5 years I probably wouldn't be financially free. So it's yeah, I mean
Those kids, they get more expensive, just so you know, FY over time.
And they have more. Yeah. So, yeah, that was a big part of it, was making sure that I was secure before I made that jump, because having, a wife and a little boy, having a family, and deciding to jump out of a plane that has proven that it can fly for 13 years into something that hasn't been shoved out of the nest yet, was scary, but it was something that I was confident in. So I don't remember the exact question, Ryan, but yeah, making sure that I was secure before I jumped was a part of it. So if you can build this foundation of what you're trying to build, and if you're miserable in your job and you want to eventually leave, you can do that even as a family person with a wife and kids or a husband and kids, whatever it is. You just have to make sure that you're strategic about when you do it.
I think, I'm really glad you brought that up, Luke. I think that's an irrational fear that a lot of people have, right? That they have to leave one thing to start something else. And, most of us, myself included, right? Once I understood what I wanted, I actually saw tremendous value in the job that I originally, I don't want to say detested, but I knew that wasn't the life for me. But once I understood that my job was a pathway to get more mortgages, to make money and save money, and it gave me the stability that I needed to put another foot into another venture, which, the passive income machine in my game plan, I was super stoked to have a job. I was so grateful. I made as much money as I could and I transferred it all to my system and I hit my strike number. And when I left my corporate world, just like you, I couldn't, travel around Europe. I couldn't live the life that I'm living today, but I could put food on the table. I could keep my lights on. I could pay my mortgage. And that little teeny doorway of options, it allowed me to see the world completely different. I knew that I could walk away from a big income, take a step down because I had enough cash flow coming in from my assets to cover my basic needs, and then start something new. And that doorway of options is the first target that we help people set inside of their game plan. And Luke, I love that you saw it, you took action on it, and man, you did it in record time. So final question for you, Luke. In fact, before, is there anything you want to say about your story, about your transformation, about your journey? And by the way, guys, as you're listening to this, Luke will be speaking at Rise Up Live this year about your one decision away. I love that idea. I love that topic. So, Luke, any final thing you want to say before I ask you the final question for today?
Man, I don't think, Ryan, it's been an awesome conversation. I mean, I think we've kind of hit on everything. It's just remembering that, like you just said, you're one decision away. You don't have to come from money to make this happen. You can stay in the current boat that you're in if you want to exit that boat and build the next boat and use it as a transition. It doesn't have to take 10 years. It doesn't have to take 3 years. It can take any, your path is going to be your path, but your path is going to start with making that decision.
Yeah, man.
So,
Okay, well, here's the question I have for you, okay? I want you to walk me back. You're starting with nothing, right? No assets in the bank. Whether you have a business or a job, you've got some income coming in, but you're starting with nothing. And if you had only 10 more years to make as much money as you could make, to invest the money that you do make, and to create a perpetual wealth system, financial freedom, and after 10 years, you could never work actively for money again, what would you do? How would you do it?
man, I would, it would look very similar to what I'm doing now, but I would implement what I'm working on implementing now much quicker. So I would build a machine that is run by people. So it's the who, not how thing. So I do a lot of fix and flip. I do a lot of multifamily. I would continue to do that because that's what I know. I can't really speak to another strategy that I don't know. I know this works, but if I only had 10 years, I would spend the first 5 of those years building and cultivating a team, and I would spend the next 5 years pouring into that team and really giving them the level of skills that they need and to where they feel ownership of their role and their responsibility. And I now build a perpetual machine that my team would run, and that would be it. I would invest in people to then run the machine that I'm building now, and that's what we're doing now. I mean, we've just brought on a few staff members from property manager, working on a construction manager. I'm putting what I'm talking about right now in motion. That would be what I would do.
Isn't that powerful? We're on a podcast talking about real estate and leverage, and at the end of the day, it all comes back to people. The solution, the answer, the opportunity, the reason, it always comes back to people. You're trying to achieve financial freedom so you can have more quality time with the people you care about and love. In order to get what you want, you have to tap into the talents, the resources, the ability, the ingenuity of other people to make up for your deficits as an individual. And I really believe an empire builder, which is kind of who we call ourselves inside of this community, the identity that we try to take on. The only way to build an empire is with people. Luke, I love that you brought that into the equation. And honestly, Luke, brother, I love watching you do what you do, watching you pour into this community, watching you freely share your expertise, watching you as a husband, as a father, as an empire builder. It is a privilege and an honor. I want you to know that you inspire me, and I'm grateful for you, my man.
Right back at you, man. I've told you multiple times off the record and on the record how much you guys mean to me, how much you mean to me, how much the community means to me, and man, I mean it every single time. It's there's not the you changed my life or this changed my life. It's a very cliche thing that we love to throw around. When I say it, I very much mean it. What you have done and created has changed my life, and I'll be forever grateful for it.
Well, Luke, hold up that tattoo, and let's end right there. Good. All right, my friends, thank you for joining us today. Luke, thank you, my friend.
Yes, sir.
All right, my friends, thanks so much for hanging out today. I really appreciate you tuning in. But before you go, if we talked about something today that made you want to take action, you need to get yourself registered for the How to Retire in 10 Years Summit. It's the financial game changer that you've been looking for, teaching you exactly how to create passive income and financial freedom in 2025. Jump on it early because we've got a special bonus waiting for you. All the details are in the link below, or head on over to retireintenyears.com. So get registered, and I'll see you at the summit.